guest speaker, I want to remind everybody about the combine that we have tomorrow here at inside the stadium and back on the small field, infield. The 14-year-olds starts at 8 a.m. and should be done around 12:30 at the latest, we're hoping. Registration will be directly behind you on the end of that red bridge where it comes into the stadium, right before you start up the ramp. That's where registration will start at 8 a.m. and we'll get the combine running about 8:30 and wrap it up hopefully around 12:30. All right, the 13-year-olds, same place. Their registration's going to start around 1:30, and we hope to get that combine running by about 2 so that we can get done in plenty of time before dinner. If you haven't seen the game schedule yet, it is posted online. Your coaches all have a copy of it. But the 14-year-olds don't start playing until tomorrow afternoon, and that is so they can participate in the combine in the morning. The 13-year-olds stop playing around noon tomorrow so that they can participate in the combine in the afternoon. Now, for pitchers, anybody who is a pitcher, during the combine, instead of throwing a bullpen session, you are going to get to sit down and have a round table discussion with our very next guest speaker. And you're going to learn some of the tricks of his trade that allowed him to play at Auburn University and with the New York Mets. He was a pitcher, so I can't think of a better person that I am going to sit down with to pick the brain of than somebody who's played both Division I college baseball at the highest level and professional baseball. So John, our next speaker, will be with the pitchers tomorrow in the combine. If you haven't already signed up for the combine, it's done online. It is no charge. It is just a value add to the Elite World Series. You log in to your Guardian account of your player, and you'll see the invite sitting there. You click on the invite, it takes you to their profile page, you make sure the information's right, you select their primary position, boom, done. You're registered, okay? If you're 14 years old, you show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you're 13 years old, you show up at 1:30. Everything's taken care of, okay? So, without further ado, we'll bring out our next guest speaker, Mr. John Madden.
First of all, how beautiful is this stadium and this field? The Nationals used to play here, and it never looked this good, I'm telling you. And I'm happy that some of you guys get to play here this week. I'm going to save the pitching stuff for the combine, so if you guys have any questions about that, we'll talk about that tomorrow. But today I kind of want to piggyback on what Coach Brewer was talking about, because you guys are at the age now where going to college and thinking about professional baseball is very important. And there's one very important thing that's going to make the difference whether you succeed in this process or you fail and you don't find a place to play. And that's what I want to talk about today. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, so you know I'm not just some bum out here, making things up. I played T-ball here in Central Florida. That's where I started. Played all the way through high school, and after my high school senior season, I thought I was going to get drafted. So I was waiting for the phone call, and it never came. And I didn't have a place to play in college. I didn't commit to anyone. I didn't sign with anyone. So now it's the summer after my senior year, and I'm looking for a place to play. Luckily, I pitched in the high school all-star game, and a coach at Seminole Community College liked what he saw. And he offered to have me do his tryout that next week. So a friend of mine and I were supposed to go to that tryout the next weekend. And my friend called me the next weekend, and I told him I had to work, and I couldn't make it, so I didn't go. So now I don't have a place to go. I can't play in college. I thought I was gonna get drafted, didn't get drafted, don't have a place to play in college. Luckily, that coach called me and said he liked what he saw at the game and offered me a full scholarship anyway. So I hung up the phone and I turned to my mom. I said, "Mom, I think I got a full scholarship." She said, "You better call him back and tell him you're going." So I said, "Yes, Mom." So I called him back and I went to Seminole Community College for 2 years. After that, I had 2 pretty good seasons there, and the team was really good. We ended up going to the EliteWorldSeries. We had a bunch of good pitchers, a bunch of good players, a bunch of guys got drafted, and I thought I was gonna get drafted again. I said, I was even better than I was in high school. So, because I kept my draft eligibility going to junior college, I was waiting for that call both years. Never got it. Luckily, I was being recruited this time. So I had other schools looking at me, other Division I schools, bigger schools, 4-year schools, and I ended up going to Auburn University. Funny story, actually, it was at the junior college all-star game. I was pitching. I didn't even get into the game. I was throwing the bullpen. I wasn't even good enough to get in the game. They just let me throw a bullpen on the side. And the Auburn coach was walking by, and I said, "You know what? I'm just gonna throw this ball as fast as I can." And I totally missed the catcher, totally missed the backstop, almost hit the Auburn coach, but he had the radar gun out at the time. And that got me into Auburn University. So it's a little bit about being at the right place at the right time. For me, going from high school, not having anywhere to play, getting to Seminole, and then from there, luckily having the Auburn coach walk by at that time, both very lucky situations. My junior year at Auburn was garbage, horrible. Walked maybe every batter I faced, I don't know. But my senior year, I did good. I led the nation in ERA, appearances, was an All-American, and I thought I did it again. I'm gonna get drafted. I did it. I'm gonna make $1 million. And I didn't. I did get drafted. I was drafted in the 8th round, signed to the San Diego Padres, but it was far from $1 million. So my big dream since high school, getting drafted, making all this money, never came about. And I know a lot of you guys have those aspirations, playing in college, playing professional baseball. But like Coach was saying, you have to stand out. There has to be something special about you. And I want to go back to what I said was the difference that will make the difference, whether you succeed in this process or you fail and fall flat on your face, and that is self-awareness. Self-awareness is important because you need to have an honest discussion with yourself. And parents, you have to have a discussion with your players as well. And it can be tough because I know now I have a son, he's 2 years old, and I want him to be the best at everything that he does. And I know everything that he does is the most amazing thing in the world. And I tell him that. And I gas him up. And I'm sure a lot of you parents do the same thing with your children. And it's good. It's good. We need to give them the confidence to succeed. But at this age, when we're going through the recruiting process, we also have to have that tough discussion and have that honest self-awareness within so we know exactly where we stand. I thought I was getting drafted every year. But if I look back, now looking back, I know there was a lot of things missing that I could have done better to make that a reality. So once you have that self-awareness and you know where you're at, that's your starting point, right? If you want to be a Division I baseball player, you have to become a Division I baseball player, right? You can't be a D3 guy, play like a D3 guy, and go, how come the D1 schools aren't contacting me? You have to become a Division I caliber player. If you want to play in pro baseball, you have to become a pro baseball caliber player. So having that self-awareness and being honest with yourself is going to give you that starting point so you know where you're at. Especially at this age. You guys are at the perfect age, 13, 14 years old. If you know where you're at and you're being honest with yourself, then you can know where you're trying to go or make a plan to get where you're going. So self-awareness is a starting point. I also want to talk about SMART goals because that's the end point. Once you have the end point, the goal, now you've got your starting point and your ending point, okay? So SMART goals are very different from dumb goals. SMART is actually an acronym. It stands for something. SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So for example, you could say, I want to be the best baseball player ever. Is that SMART? No. It's not very specific. You can't measure that, can you? If I asked all you guys here, who's the best baseball player ever? I'd get 100 different answers. So you can't measure that. Is it attainable and realistic? I know we've got some of the best baseball players in the country right here, but the odds tell us it's probably not realistic or attainable. Is it timely? Do we have an end date to it? No. So that's not a very smart goal. A smarter goal would be something like, I want to get a full scholarship to a junior college school, maybe you name the school, by the end of my junior year. Is that specific? Very specific. Is it measurable? Yeah, you either do it or you don't. Is it attainable and realistic? Well, you have to look back at your self-awareness. Is it attainable and realistic for you? Maybe so. Maybe you're a Division I guy. Maybe you set the goal for Division I. Also, is it timely? Yes, you said by the end of my junior year, I want to know. So if you have this set in place, this SMART goal or these SMART goals, then you may not be left at the end of your senior season looking for a place to play. The great thing about having the end point is now you can set a plan to achieve that end point. You can set the pathway to get there. And that's the plan. You have to put in the work, hard work. Coach Brewer talked about getting 5% better every day. And that's what you should strive to do, okay? What is your daily discipline gonna be? What is your daily routine gonna be? How hard are you willing to work? What are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? The last thing I want to talk about is the social media, like Coach Brewer and Matt talked about. And this can be used not only as a negative thing, obviously if you post bad things to it, it can come back and bite you, but this day and age, you can use it for exposure. Everyone has an iPhone or a cell phone with video on it. You can get out on the field, take yourself taking some cuts, and send it to all these different coaches. It's super easy. So the exposure nowadays is not the most important thing. Again, from my perspective, the most important thing is going to be that self-awareness within yourself, having that honest talk with yourself, parents, with your players as well. I hope that if you take anything from what I said today, you at least take a few minutes today or maybe when you get home next week and just sit down and think about it. Think about where you're at. Sit down, write some SMART goals out, and then come up with a plan of what you're going to do over the next few weeks, the next few months, and the next few years. Because right now, 13 to 14 years old, the next few years are very, very important if you guys want to play college and professional baseball. Thank you guys. I'll talk to you pitchers tomorrow.